Hello, my name is Rebecca Roberts, and I am here to present my master's thesis, Fun, Friendship and the Formation of Character, a case study of the impact of the combined cadet force in a state secondary school. I finished my master's studies with the Faculty of Education at Cambridge last year, and I'm thrilled to be here today to be able to present how the CCF bridges the policy and the practice and in state schools at this moment in time. Throughout the presentation, I shall be introducing the background, going on to describe the policy context that we find ourselves in state secondary schools in England, then giving you an overview of the current study, bridging the gap between the policy and the practice, and finally, the avenues of further research and the ripple effect hypothesis. The background to this study. This is something I've considered perhaps more so now that my master's is finished, but I've always been heavily involved in extracurriculars, whether that is as a pupil in secondary school, whether that is a student in university, or now myself as a teacher, as you can see. I spent 9 years working and dancing with the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo from when I was 15 to when I was 24, as I entered teacher training. And that is something that has shaped me into the human that I am today. I trained as Cadet Force adult volunteer when I started my full-time employment. So as a newly qualified teacher, I also trained to be a CFAV. And you'll notice that throughout literature, we are now the CFAVs rather than Cadet Force adult volunteer. And then finally, my husband, who is a former army musician, he's now a music teacher. So, as we can see throughout my own personal background, I have had close ties with the military, though I was never a cadet myself. And seeing the cadets in front of me that I see day in, day out on camps, in lessons, etc., it was something I thought was worth looking into because I can spot differences in them, and I wanted to be able to demonstrate that. In terms of policy, we have the Ofsted framework from 2019, which itself mentions behaviour and attitude, personal development, spiritual, moral and social development as well. And Ofsted very helpfully produced a document that maps how the CCF moulds itself to delivering these. They posit that discipline, engaging opportunities for experiential learning, life skills and values and standards are some of the key takeaways that pupils can have from the combined cadet force. And so throughout this study, it was my aim to see how much of that actually holds true in practice. In addition to the Ofsted framework, we have the Character Education Framework from the Department for Education in 2019. And there are 6 character benchmarks. Their definition of character was not very succinct and ran a good couple of pages, but the questions that they propose that you ask yourself as a school: firstly, what kind of school are we? Secondly, what are our expectations of behaviour towards each other? Number 3, how well do our curriculum and teaching develop resilience and confidence? Number 4, how good is our co-curriculum? Number 5, how well do we promote the value of volunteering and service to others? And finally, how do we ensure that our pupils benefit equally from what we offer? These are quite meaty questions, I'm sure you will agree, and you could spend a long time debating the ins and outs of how we could go about ensuring this for all of our pupils. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, I will be able to demonstrate how well the CCF caters to this character education. Previous literature, as you know, the combined cadet force was formed in 1948, relatively new in terms of the world, and there isn't too much literature. It was a main feature in in private schools, but following the cadet expansion plan, which was started back around 2006, 2008, we've seen the emphasis has shifted, and there are more state school pupils than there are private school pupils now. In terms of studies, we have Glover and Sparks, 2009, who studied a small unit in Newport, South Wales, and noted improved attendance and improved non-cognitive skills. Moon et al., 2010, was a national study that was done online and via sort of email and telephone interviews. And they noted improved attitudes and behaviour, improved non-cognitive skills. However, the main body of literature and research comes from the University of Northampton. They have just completed a 4-year longitudinal study entitled The Social Impact Resulting from Expenditure on Cadets. And they were tasked by the Department for Education to go beyond the anecdote and to prove the cadets' worth to the taxpayer. The 4 main findings in terms of the qualitative findings, we had narrowing the attainment gap and the ability to do that, improvement of attendance rates, improved attitudes and behaviour, and finally improved well-being. The final report I will leave to after my current study. It was published just after, or just whilst I was doing my data collection, and I made sure not to read it for fear of confirmation bias. And so I will treat this presentation in the same way. The study at hand is a CCF Army section founded in 2017 in a state secondary school in the southeast of England. We had 28 cadets that took part voluntarily, and we were able to match them with 28 non-cadet peers. This was done through myself and some of the other staff members, taking into consideration attendance rates, behaviour, attitudes, backgrounds, and we were able to, for the best part, match our pupils. We were given the blessing by Bajwa Patel et al. To use their survey, which is based on these 3 main points: self-efficacy, self-regulation, and well-being. The secondary data that we could have used, unfortunately, we could only use the attendance due to changes in school policy throughout the time that the cadets has been around. And I was able to then follow up with some semi-structured interviews. Due to the pandemic, which hit just as data collection was starting, we held these via Zoom, which had the one negative of it being slightly stilted. However, the main benefit was that we could have the parents present. They had to be present for safeguarding reasons, but we were able to pick their brains and dig a little bit deeper into the wider impact, not just on the pupil themselves, but on their families too. And finally, I was able to hold a staff group interview to further triangulate my findings. Descriptive statistics for the survey were as follows, and you'll notice we are outweighed here, male to female, unfortunately. However, in the cadets versus non-cadets, we have got an overwhelming result there that the cadets are coming out on top throughout. And even when we split it down further, we've got the female cadets outperforming in terms of self-regulation. Whether that's something that's surprising or not was something we discussed it quite at length as staff members. But I was very intrigued in this self-regulation because the difference was quite drastic, as you can see. And so we put that through some statistical testing. And through the Mann-Whitney test, found that the self-regulation score was actually quite significant. I'd hope that if I could retest this, we would have similar results, and it is something that we will possibly do as we move forward. But statistical testing aside, what was really pertinent to us as a school was to know the qualitative impact it was having on the lives of our pupils, our families, our staff. And so as we delve in, you'll find in your handout, I've got more quotes. I've taken a couple to discuss, but there are plenty I wanted to share with you. Here's the word cloud of our findings. The word family came out, and that is something that's very unique to us, which I could fill another 15 minutes at least discussing, but I won't for now. But yes, skills, confidence, fun, friends, all of these were what came to the top, quite literally. In terms of themes, learning opportunities, positive effects on pupils, community, effective response, and effect on school were our 5 salient themes that we were able to identify. The learning opportunities, positive effect on pupil, and community were the ones that really came to the top, with positive effects on school being not too far behind. In terms of the final report, you will note some similarities: well-being, community cohesion, self-efficacy, the value of and to CFAVs, please forgive the small typo there. It goes to show that actually what we found, not too dissimilar to what is happening on a wider picture across the UK. I wanted to pull this quote from Cadet 23, demonstrating Cadet 23's growth as a human. She started with us as a very reticent, very quiet individual, She's about to leave us in Year 11 in a couple of weeks' time as a far more confident, far more self-assured young woman who will be ready to take on the challenges that will face her in the next couple of years. And it's that realization that she could actually do something, and that she could come out of her shell, for example, not to be overshadowed by some of the other cadets, and instilling in her that leadership that could be quiet yet powerful. Another quote here from Cadet 16, demonstrating in his words the differences between those who do cadets and those who do not. The people who have stuck through cadets are quite a lot different to their friends because they just know how to handle stressful situations. They know how to administer first aid, and they're sort of like a mini adult compared to everyone else. These were the words direct from Cadet 16, who himself has gone from a fairly quiet Year 7 to a very confident cadet sergeant who's about to go through interviews. He has hit a nail on the head there with they know how to handle stressful situations. The CCF affords our young people the incredible opportunity to experience once in a lifetime experiences. They get to learn how to handle and fire a semi-automatic rifle, which is only a couple of buttons away from what the infantry use. If that's not stressful, I don't know what is. I find it stressful as an adult. Anytime I am on a range, it's a lot to think about, and for somebody of that age to be able to do that and do it in the way that they do is incredibly astounding. We teach them how to administer first aid and quite complex first aids in the hope that they never have to use it. However, we do have pupils who have had accolades for their first aid skills, having had to use them in the community. And the fact that, they're just sort of like a little mini adult compared to everyone else. You see that as a teacher, as a staff member, as a visitor to the school, the cadets stand out. And like I said, he's very much hit a nail on the head. His father then went on to discuss the difference in his maturity. Cadet 16 was promoted. He's currently a sergeant with us, cadet sergeant that is, and so is in command of a small group of cadets. And not only letting that power sink in and that responsibility sink in, but was able to reflect and self-evaluate in a way that his dad was sure wouldn't have happened had he not had the chance. And Cadet 16 is going through the interviews at the moment to possibly become our head boy. And actually we have been overrepresented in the past 4 years on the head boy, head girl student leadership team. And so just another quick quote to demonstrate the impact it's having on our cadets. In terms of my ripple effect hypothesis, based on flow theory, I am skimming across this. I do realise, and I wish I could spend longer, but I posit that the ability to join an extracurricular club, to experience success, experience failure, to make friends, to have support, for that to feel like a family, that can only then start to ripple out and have a wider effect on you as a human. I noticed it as myself as a child, and I see this happening here. And so the first wave of this being join the CCF, making friends, having fun, experiencing all these new opportunities. That then starts to echo out into experiencing success and failure and knowing how to deal with that. Feeling more supported in school, increasing non-cognitive skills, and therefore being better engaged. And then as it then ripples out further, future aspirations being much higher. We've just had a pupil who has been, she was selected for interview at University of Cambridge, which is incredibly positive. She was one of our ex-head cadets. We've had plenty of pupils going on to excel at college and go on to have very sensible careers, and realising that own potential is key. If I were able to, I would love to do some further study into this. In terms of policy versus practice, is the CCF a vehicle for character education? The question that they pose is, does the character education you provide give young people the life skills and self-confidence to take charge of their lives so they can reach their full potential at school and beyond, including in employment? I can wholeheartedly say from my practice, from my study, that yes, it does. And it's something that I'm looking forward to monitoring further. In terms of further study, like I said, I would be really interested to look at this ripple effect hypothesis in a little more detail, to complete a longitudinal study, and to demonstrate or to investigate whether this is unique to CCF or whether you notice this with Duke of Edinburgh, with any other form of extracurricular. I have some inklings from the conversations I've had with governors, with staff members, with pupils, but it would be really useful to actually do a proper study on it. My references are here. You can find them in the handout as well. And finally, if you'd like to get in touch, please do. I'm more than happy. Email, phone, tweet. I am at Miss Edmonston. It's my maiden name there. And it'd be lovely to hear from you. Thank you for listening.